Okay, so some of you are getting pretty far on your work, but I want to talk to you about something before you get any farther. Now, you may have noticed that there are some decorations that go in different directions on this pot, and you can do that too if you want to. If you do not want to do that, you can go ahead and quietly keep working. But if you do want to be able to do this somewhere on your work, some way, you want to make it happen, keep watching the screen. So some of you are going back to working and some of you are going to keep watching the screen. So for any type of shape that you want to make, you're going to start out the same way by making a coil. Now I'm going to show you how to make a spiral. I'm just going to spiral it up. We already saw how to do this in the beginning. Oh, bummer. I need to go back and score that in there where it's going to attach to help it glue together. Okay, now I've decided that this is big enough. So I'm going to trim it there. Notice that I trimmed it at an angle so that it would kind of smooth onto itself, making kind of like that little ramp that I made before. And when you're going to attach something like this, if you're gonna do a whole bunch of these all the way around, I would suggest making them all first, then choosing where you're gonna have them. I'm gonna make this even so I can get that in there. So when you're done with a coil, you're just gonna kind of smooth it out, but I'll show you that again at the end. So score and slip where you're going to put it, and then you need to give your pot some support so that it doesn't break while you're trying to squish this on. And you're just gonna kind of push it on firmly, push down on the pot, and then you're gonna have to kind of gently set it there and just hope that it stays while you get the other ones in place. Now I'm gonna put one next to this. So let me hold that up again. Imagine that there's a circle right here. There's going to be a gap right there. So what you can do is take a tiny piece of clay, roll it between your fingers and make a little ball, and just fill that spot with a little ball. And then you're gonna put your other coils around. That'll help fill those gaps for you if you want the gaps filled. If not, you can just attach another one on there. Make sure that you score and slip this spot and the spot over here. Now, if you do want to make like little balls going all the way around, little dots can be nice little decorations for you. You can make bigger ones or smaller ones, and you kind of just attach it the same way. Get them nice and smooth before you attach them on, and then you could just decorate all the way around. And then you could put coils on top of that. The tricky part is trying to get it even again so that you can build on top of that, but you can do it. Just try to have any decorations that you build be about the same thickness as your coils below so it can have a consistent thickness. Okay, so there's an example of little dots going all the way around. I mean, not all the way around, but you know. Is anybody wanting to smooth stuff out completely and not see the coils? Yeah, okay. If you are going to smooth things out, you do not want to see the coils. You would use one of these tools. This is the tool that I showed you that would be great for cutting. Well, it's also really great for smoothing things out. So what you would have to do is put your hand inside of your pot and support the walls of your vessel. Your pot is your vessel. And smooth it out just like this by rubbing the clay with that tool. It's almost like a spatula. You're like scraping it into the empty spots. You're scraping other parts of clay into those empty spots. Now again, if it's too wet, it's not going to work because it's going to be too slippery and the clay won't move anywhere that you want it to move. Your tool will just glide right over it. But if it's too dry, you're not going to be able to move it around. So sometimes you might need to add water. Sometimes you might need to try to get rid of some water by taking some of the water off and like wiping it on your mat. Once you get everything smoothed out like this, you need to get one little drip of water on your finger and then smooth over the whole thing to get rid of any crumbs. Those crumbs will actually harden on your work and they will be like little rocks stuck to the surface of your clay. So make sure you smooth them away. All right, so if you want to make a handle, the handle needs to be much thicker than the coils. So I can't just take this coil and stick it on as a handle because it's going to be way too thin and it's just going to crack and break off. So I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to use a different piece of clay. I'm setting my pot on its side so that you can see it, but don't set yours on its side. Okay. So I'm going to take a piece and I'm going to roll it into a coil, but I'm going to stop once I think that it is the size that I want my handle to be. Now, it's going to be a lot easier to attach this to the pot if the edges are straight. So I'm just going to trim them. I'm going to bend this to the shape that I want it. So if the handle is like this, and I have this rounded edge to attach onto it, that's going to be tricky. So trimming that handle so that it fits straight up against the pot would be a really good idea. So I could put that right on there. How do I attach things with clay? Score and slip, and you can smooth it on. You're gonna have to smooth it on really well. If you don't do all of those steps, your handle may stick there for the time being, but then later on today, it may have gravity take its toll, and that gravity may just pull and slowly pull, and then your handle will fall off. And by the time I even figure out that that has happened, there will be no way for me to attach it back on because your pot will be too dry. So make sure you score and slip, smooth it on if you want any handles. As far as lids, you can do that the same way that you made the bottom of your pot. I would recommend the pancake style of building for a lid, and you can attach a little handle to the lid on top of the lid if you want to be able to pull it off. So just make sure that your lid is big enough to cover the whole surface of the clay, and make sure that it fits on there and that it like kind of rests on there nicely. We don't want it to dry on there because it could kind of get stuck, but just make sure it fits kind of nicely. And you can actually put a little coil inside of the lid to keep it from sliding around. So on the bottom side of the lid, you could put a coil. So if you're getting to the point where your pot is done, which a lot of you are getting to that point, you need to go through and look for places that have rough spots. I've got some like little just spots where my hand was wet and I touched the clay, and there's like a little spot that it's not rough if I touch it right now, but if it dries that way and it gets baked that way, it will be a rough texture on my pot, and I don't want that. So I'm gonna go through and smooth out all that stuff. If I have any little clumps like this, I'm gonna just pick those off or just rub them in. Make sure they get completely rubbed in. Anything like these little crumbs that are down in all of the crevices, those will be there when it gets baked and it comes back out of the kiln. It'll be visible, I'll see it, it will be there forever. So, or until the pot, hopefully it won't break, but if it breaks, it's gonna be there still, even when the pot breaks. Oh my goodness. Anyway, just gonna go through the whole thing and make sure that that is smooth and it is the way that you want it. Even turn your pot over and hold it upside down. This is really important because if you set this on a wooden shelf and it's got those rough spots on it, it may scratch your shelf. So make sure that you really get the bottom of this smooth. Other spots that come from setting it in the bin or things like that, we can sand things off to make it smoother on the bottom when you get it back. But it's easier if you kind of go through and get big chunks smoothed down now and get everything kind of the way that you want it. And then I'm gonna need you to take your pot to an adult and have them write your first name and class code on your work, because I can't read everybody's handwriting always. So make sure you take it to an adult.